I'm Rick Malthaner, and this is Talk Tonic here at RetailNOW 2025. I'm joined today by a longtime industry friend, Mike Monocello from DevPro Journal. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Rick.
Great to have you here today, and we're going to talk through a whole bunch of wide-ranging, high-level topics within the point-of-sale industry. But before we get there, I'd love for you to just give us a little bit about your background and what you do and anything new that you're doing these days.
Yeah, I'm with DevPro Journal. I'm a founder of DevPro Journal. That's an online publication that's dedicated to educating software developers on how they can grow fulfilling, sustainable businesses. I also am the co-founder of Managed Services Journal, which is more on like the VAR and managed services side. So we touch on a lot of different opportunities in that space. But again, it's all about helping people build good businesses. And so I've got kind of like a unique perspective where I see things from the software developer side. I also see things from the VAR managed services side of things. And then I'm also heading up an initiative right now with BlueStar to build out a training program to help train their partners on how to make their businesses better. So basically sales training, technology training, et cetera. So I'm doing a lot of things, but it all boils down to helping the people in this room and in this, IT community make better businesses.
That's great. BlueStar has been a longtime friend of mine in the business, and so it's exciting to see you working with them as well.
Yeah, it's fun.
Let's just start very high level. You're walking around the show last night at the opening event. What are you seeing? What are the trends that you're seeing in the industry and particularly in this room?
I hate to use this term right off the bat because I think people have heard it a lot, but it's the AI thing, right? And so don't click close on this video. We keep hearing about AI, but it's like, okay, how does it make sense to me as an individual? How does it make sense to me as a business or to my customers? That's really what I've been trying to understand here at this show is getting answers to those three things. From a personal standpoint, I think it's kind of interesting. I mean, everyone uses ChatGPT, Gemini, you pick your favorite flavor. Everyone's using it in their day-to-day lives. There are really unique things that I've encountered some people doing with AI that I'll share one with you, and you may have heard of this, but I was in a meeting and someone said that they are leveraging AI. So they created a digital board of directors. Have you heard of this?
I haven't.
Yeah. So they basically program different personas for their board. And in fact, a real example is one of their board members he named him Don Draper from Mad Men. So he's got, I guess, the positive characteristics of Don Draper, not the negative ones. But basically these different personas who can provide different types of advice that then this person can use to ask questions about their business and help steer the business in a direction. That's fascinating. I'd never considered that. Most people are using it to like summarize an email or, write up a quick article or something like that. So that's kind of interesting. But then shifting more into like the business world, right? Like, how do you help your customers or how do you leverage AI to help your customers? I'm not seeing answers to that yet here at this. And also, how do you leverage AI to really help your business? So we're talking about not just doing those things like helping your marketing team write some materials or something, but truly like gathering data about your business, creating almost like your own private data lake to then apply AI to that to help improve your operations, to automate things. Again, these are things that people are talking about, but I'm not yet seeing answers to it. So my advice is you can't just say, like, I'm hearing so much about AI, I can't deal with this anymore. Like, there's nothing, I can't do anything. I'll just wait. You have to be on top of it. You have to be paying attention and hope that you're there when it's ready for you.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's interesting because, the AI revolution and AI being a buzzword everywhere. I go back to 2017, 2018, working with a data company. And, it was the machine learning side of things was starting to get a lot of attention. What that looked like back then was really customer data analytics, those kind of things being analyzed and then being able to take that data and use it for engagement. And I think that's probably somewhere that we'll really see in the hospitality industry, we'll really see things go toward that because it's, the word I like to use is actionable, right?
Yeah,
Data means nothing if it's not actionable. And
sure.
and when I say actionable, I like the other term revenue, right? Because
Yeah,
it can be actionable but not make money. But there are
true.
going to be ways that people can exploit it to make money. Can you think of either something you know of now or where things are going to be going in the future? We want to be ready for those as a point of sale company. We want to be ready to partner and integrate with really innovative things that probably don't even exist yet.
You hit the nail on the head. Like you guys as a software company and all the other software companies in this space, you already have an idea. You know that data is valuable, right? And so you're already coming up with ways to leverage it. I think that AI is the next piece to like make that data even more actionable, especially if you can figure out a way to kind of aggregate it. And I know that there are legalities and there's privacy concerns. Some merchants or restaurants might not feel good about their data being pooled with others. If it can be anonymized and gathered correctly, I think it's an interesting value proposition for all your restaurants or all your partners who can kind of, assuming you could do that and wanted to do that, imagine having that data pool that they could all use to collectively raise their intelligence about menu choices, about pricing, about different promotions, et cetera. I think that there's like untapped opportunities that are going to be coming down the road if we can just kind of wrangle this stuff and make sense of it. The whole data monetization thing is really interesting, I think. I know that there are companies that are kind of trying to enter into this space coming from a data standpoint. They're not coming from like the point of sale side. They're data aggregators. They make their money off of data. They want your data as a reseller or, the reseller of the merchant. And, I think that the legacy companies here in this space, if they can kind of get in the data game a little bit, they'll have a leg up compared to the data guys coming into this point of sale space.
I think it's a perfect opportunity to move into another piece of that, and that is security, right? I know you're at the forefront of that, and so
yeah, especially from the managed services journal side of kind of my day-to-day life, we cover security a lot, and it's something that when I come to this show, there are some security sessions, but generally speaking, the average reseller here, security is not top of mind. And they might, if you ask them, oh yeah, I care about security. But when you ask what they're doing, it's usually not very much because credit card processing has become such a big part of this ecosystem. And all that data is now out of scope. So they don't need to worry about the card data, or they say they don't. All the data is cloud-based. Well, your resellers, they probably don't care. They think that you need to worry about security.
correct.
They don't need to worry about it. You do. I would challenge that though, because when we talk about competing with the 1-800 number guys, the competitors out there, there's a value proposition that always comes up that resellers walking this floor have, and that is being a trusted advisor. And when a breach happens, and they will happen in one way or another, it might be small, it might be big, everyone starts pointing fingers. The restaurant, the merchant, they're going to be calling that trusted advisor first, and they're going to say, I've got a problem. And then everyone starts pointing fingers, the software guys, the hardware guys. But ultimately, it comes down to me. If you want to be the trusted advisor, then you are on the hook for a security breach. You're going to be fielding that call whether you like it or not, because you've supposedly earned that right to call yourself a trusted advisor. And so I don't think it's acceptable to not get involved in security. I think you have to be. And so they might say then, well, what should I be doing? And there are tons of things that can be done. Security comes down to technology, people, and processes. And the things that I use as an example, hard data out of scope, information in the cloud, that's more technology. But then there's processes and people, right? There's educating your merchants on best practices for email phishing and two-factor authentication. A big thing that I see as well is what happens when something does happen, an incident response. How do you respond? Oftentimes, if you're not involved in this and an incident occurs, you're scrambling. And that's not a good look for a trusted advisor, right? What kind of processes do you have in place when something does happen? Do you have, and that means everything from like, who do we call, right? Like, where are those phone numbers?
A lot of that's the communication, not necessarily the technical side, right? Being in front of it.
Absolutely, yeah. It's how do you communicate? What do we say? You know, like maybe you have an email that's already been pre-written that has some kind of a statement that kind of walks a line about legally, like you're not admitting anything, but you're also like showing that you're caring and, you know, like you're on top of it. That's like securing your customers. But then there's also this whole component of securing yourself as a business, right? So there was just a recent breach. A lot of resellers here have moved toward managed services, and they use PSA tools, professional service automation, like ConnectWise. ConnectWise had a huge breach. And so what happens if the tools that you're using as a reseller are breached? And then all of a sudden, someone is pushing malware up to your customers. Or an example in a session earlier was 500 tablets that were deployed across the United States all of a sudden had disturbing images being shown on the splash screen, you know? So like, as a reseller, as that trusted advisor, you are a potential vector for these malicious actors getting in and causing trouble. So you need to, even if you don't think you need to worry about your customers, you need to worry about yourself and have good security best practices to be able to, you know, keep them safe. Just, you don't want to become a conduit for something bad like that, you know?
Fair enough. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of take this one back to, I came into this industry from the tech side, right? I was an MCSE. I was a network administrator. So the security side was very important to me early on. But then when it got to the point of cost and trying to monetize it, right? I remember Sonic Wall back in the day. We used to bundle that into our SaaS pricing, because when you'd have a conversation with a restaurant about security, it came down to, if this device is $300 and $12 a month, and this Linksys router is free, what do you think a restaurant's going to choose, right? And so I think that is what I feel like led to, in the point of sale space, a bit of a revolution where people who were the cash register company or the POS guy started to embrace managed services a bit, because they understood, number one, it's a revenue opportunity. And number two, from a security standpoint, you need to be able to provide those kind of things. And so the fact that you deal with managed service providers outside of our industry, what do you see the crossover being over the next few years for the typical point of sale VAR to get deeper and embrace those kind of things as it pertains to security?
It's a huge opportunity. I thought you were going to ask me, is there a threat for these? There was talk about managed services providers coming into this space, and some have, but by and far, they don't like the hours.
Right.
So,
and the monetization of an SMB restaurant, because when you come in and say, you know, hey, a point of sale's $300 a month. Oh, and here's the managed services side, which is $942 a month.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to make those numbers work.
Exactly. But from a managed services providers have gotten really good at building bundles out, right? And building value around those bundles. And a lot of the people in that space talk about selling the cake, not the ingredients. And we're not talking about cake point of sale here. We're talking about, you know, baking. But the idea is, instead of selling all these little disparate services, sell that cake, sell that final product. I'm giving, as a retailer, as a restaurant, here's the solution that I'm giving you. It costs you X number of dollars per month, and it includes this. And oh, by the way, baked into that is your security. It's maybe a cellular failover for in the event that something happens. It's backup, it's training, it's education. All these things kind of get bundled into a quote unquote cake that, you know, that's our solution. And they've been very successful at it. It's a complete paradigm shift, though, from a sales standpoint. A lot of times people in this space get used to like, well, I'm just a point of sale guy, and that's all I sell. Or maybe even some people are just like, they're really hardware focused. They just want to push terminals. If you shift over, if you can make that shift toward managed services, the people we know, you and I personally know in this space that have done that are the most successful people here.
In my day of being a reseller, I realized somewhere along the line that being able to add all of those services around point of sale, point of sale was the platform that we were going to market with, but everything that rode around that, payments, data, loyalty, all of that, from a retention standpoint, if you look at where we are now, everything is monthly for the most part.
Yep.
For people who have been successful. Everything is recurring revenue, right? If you keep your customer an average of 17 months versus 58 months or 123 months, there's a huge difference there. And I think when you are presenting this package that is way bigger than what the 800 numbers do, as well as backing it up with communications and service and all of that kind of thing, it puts you in a whole different spot.
Absolutely. It's like the biggest competitive advantage you could have, be truly earning that trusted advisor status by really being the total solution provider to your customers and offering them everything that they need. So any technology, they turn to you. And the nice thing is, again, going back to, I know there are people who feel like I don't do this, or I can't do this, or they don't want to do this. That's okay, because there are numerous partnership opportunities, right? I'm sure that if you have a partner who says they want to get into X and you have another partner that can do that, and you can make those connections. And that's the same, that holds true for everything going on here at this show. There's a nice community going on where if you don't want to get into backup and disaster recovery, you're going to be able to find someone who could potentially help you with that. And then you don't really need to, but you could still offer that service. Someone's going to be selling these services to your customers. Why shouldn't it be you? That's what it comes down to me.
Absolutely. I've always felt that way. And I think that kind of brings us to you're doing some work with BlueStar. And like I said, BlueStar's been a friend of mine, a friend of Tonic, a great company just with great people. And that's what it's all about. When we talk about looking around for those type of things, that's something that BlueStar brings to the table, right? You can go to BlueStar and they've vetted a lot of these solutions. They've got an ISV program where they'll connect you with people. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing specifically with BlueStar and kind of how that relates to resellers who are looking to add certain things, whether it be training or 4G, 5G failover?
Yeah. So the idea behind this BlueStar initiative is they've had partners coming to them saying, we need help with training. We hire a new salesperson. I'm sure everyone is experienced with this. You hire a new salesperson, and depending on your industry or focus, it takes anywhere from months to years before they are truly effective, depending on how green they are and how complicated your market is. How do we accelerate that learning to get them to be more productive salespeople, to be able to have more in-depth conversations with their customers? And so BlueStar decided, okay, let's launch a training initiative. Let's launch a program. And so I'm heading that up in terms of building out the curriculum and holding the training. But the idea is to bring in salespeople early and get them educated on the technology, depending on what, it could be barcoding and RFID, or it could be restaurant point of sale, digital signage, get them fully up to speed on what that looks like. But then more importantly, convert that into solution selling. Again, this gets into being that trusted advisor, having those conversations with your customers. You can't just go in and try to push a terminal. You need to understand today where they're suffering. Like, what are their pain points? Is it inventory turnover? Is it, everyone's got a different pain point. I mean, there are obviously some common ones, but, so understanding those pain points, identifying the key buying personas, right? Because different people within an operation have different cares and concerns. And then making sure that you're building solutions that address those pain points. I mean, it's no secret, but many people don't do that very well, So that's the whole idea, is to help skill people up and allow them to do that better.
Just another example of the value that's in this room and in this industry.
It's amazing. This is a really, really good community. Like you, I've been coming here for decades. And also because of my background, I go to a lot of different trade shows, and I've not found a community like the RSPA. So I guess if I could, I'll do a quick plug for the RSPA, right? That's what we should talk about
We
because
should.
well, let's talk about it. Like the value adds that the RSPA provides to members are vast and numerous, right? A lot of times people think of RetailNOW, or they'll call this show RSPA.
RSPA, right?
Yeah, which it's not, right? And the RSPA is doing things all year long. It's connecting people, there are communities, there's education. I mean, what are some of the ways that you've personally benefited from this association?
Yeah, it's funny. We'll go on the Wayback Machine here.
Yeah.
My first RetailNOW, I believe, was 2004. It was the year after I became a dinerware dealer. Dinerware had a partner conference here in Vegas that, on a Saturday. And ironically, I didn't really know what RSPA was all about back then. Probably not quite the ubiquitous internet days of now. And I certainly didn't have a phone that was talking about it. I was in that room and I remember the chairman of the RSPA came into the room to talk to people about what the organization was about and why you should join as a dealer. And it resonated, right? I saw the community. I saw people who said, this is my 28th, ICRDA, SDA. They combined a few years before that into the RSPA. And so seeing that as a 28-year-old, I kind of said to myself, wow, this is that next level of business advice and moving my business to the next level. So I ended up changing my plane ticket to go home and stayed for my first RetailNOW. Obviously, throughout the years, it's the networking, it's the people. There's no doubt if somebody says to me, asks me, what's the number one reason I should join the RSPA? It's simply the connections you make here.
Yeah.
I get joked about by some of the younger guys on my team and gals on my team where they're like, everybody here. I'm like, you spend 21 years in a room and you will know a lot of people.
Yeah.
Not everybody, but you'll continually meet new people. A few years back, I decided it was time. I was at a spot in my professional career where I said, I can give back. I have a lot that I think that I can share, right? And that was when I ran for the board and won a seat. It was a 3-year term. And that was great experience, but it was all about that giving back to the organization that had brought so much to me.
Yeah.
And, I could probably touch on 50 topics over the years that have either resonated with me or could be tied directly to revenue, right?
Yeah.
And the shift of the business, we were kind of early adopters on the shifting it to monthly recurring revenue as a service. In fact, we were the ones who petitioned Dinerware and said, hey, instead of selling me licenses for X number of dollars, can we buy those on a monthly basis and turn them on and off as needed? And so that was kind of a mind shift in the industry that obviously we were ahead of the game, but it went right there for years.
Yeah. You can't operate in a vacuum as a business anymore, I don't think. When you come here, even though there's a lot of competition, the community is so open. You find people who are competing against each other, but still sharing best practices, giving advice to one another. There's no better place, I don't think, to gather intelligence as to the direction of the industry, what you should be doing, etc. However, this is just one show. This is just one show during the year. And I think a lot of times people overlook some of the other benefits. The one in particular, I guess, the average reseller member is pretty small. And I want to say that the dues are only like $250 a year for that size of reseller, which is next to nothing, right? One of the members was just saying that by being a member, your children or children of your employees even are eligible for the RSPA scholarship. And she calculated that the scholarships alone that her children received were like 50 years worth of membership dues, right? So there's that. Then there's also Jill Miller, who's at, the RSPA's legal counsel. So as a member for $250 a year, you gain access to this lawyer that has all these contracts already pre-written, will advise you on things. I mean, it more than pays for itself.
Not to mention can help you if you have a merchant of yours that's in some kind of pearl.
Absolutely.
With either, being non-compliant on cash discount or surcharging or dual pricing. We can call them any of those. I've seen that throughout the years where, in fact, I utilized the RSPA legal services a bunch of times, and it was very, very valuable.
Yeah. And then one other thing, just because to tie it back to this ecosystem that we've talked about here a number of times, The RSPA has this initiative right now called like a white glove service or something like that. And it's essentially, they want to help you as a member improve your business. And so I know that a lot of newer members have come, and in the past you would sign up and, thanks for your money, enjoy the show, etc. Now they really want to understand, what are you trying to accomplish here at this event? And let me make connections. Let me help you. Let me introduce you to the right people so you can have the value that you need out of this association. And it's been really successful. I mean, and it makes sense, right? I mean, everyone needs help in some way. Someone's looking for something when they come to this show or when they join the association. So let's help them achieve that goal. Everyone's going to be happy. So
for sure. I always see a lot of the same people around this show. But over the years, there are definitely some point of sale resellers who kind of have this attitude of like, no, everything's great in my business. I'm not going to RetailNOW this year. And I think back to Dan Bratlin's presentation this morning, where he talks about diversify or die, right? And some of the stuff that you talked about, some of the value that the RSPA brings, when you get to a certain point in your business where it goes from either maybe just maintaining and then starts declining, that's when you need this kind of thing the most, right? You need to be able to adapt to the market, maybe bring new features and functionality in, whatever it is. And so I think that's important, that resellers kind of have this mentality of, there's a proactive mentality of what joining and being a part of this organization is. But then there's also the time when you have to be reactive. Legal services, for example, security, adding managed services, any of that. If you're engaged, when it comes time to pivot and go down those roads, it's so much easier.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, not to over stress the value of this show or to talk too much about the value of the show, because there are other things. There's like an ISV community. So if you're a software developer, be a part of that community. They meet monthly. You can talk to other software developers and ask them questions about, how are you doing something? How are you dealing with this challenge? I mean, that's invaluable. If you're trying to pivot or understand how to leverage AI, right?
Yeah.
Then you can have a pool of, say, 20 people on that call. I've been on those calls, and someone says, how are you guys doing this? And you'll get 5 examples of like what didn't work, and then 5 examples of what did work. That's priceless.
I think that was what was most shocking for me when I first joined this organization, and just being around point of sale resellers, is you can, right now as an ISV, and as a payments business, and even as a reseller business, you can look around the room and say, oh, these people are my competitors, right?
Yeah.
In one of the sessions this morning, Thomas Barano joked, oh, I see Tonic's here. They're going to learn from me and steal my secrets. And then I jokingly asked him, hey, you want me to leave? And he's like, no, of course not, right? And that is, it's the willingness to share. We're all in this together, right? Yeah. My who you would call competitors at this show, I don't like to think of them as that necessarily when we're hanging out with them, but we are up against private equity backed, venture capital backed. That's the competitor. There's enough room in this space for plenty of us to be good partners to our resellers and do the right thing and help them grow their businesses. So that sharing is ultimately.
If you and your competitors here at this show could put the VC backed guys out of business, you and your competitors would be ecstatic. Like, I mean, you'd all be very, very wealthy. There's plenty of room for all of you. Absolutely.
That's what I think people forget too, is that the bigger you are, the harder and faster you can fall. I always talk about in SaaS-based business, even for a reseller, attrition is huge, because if you're all excited because you're adding 15, 20 accounts every month, you're shedding 6 or 7 a month. And it can just be restaurants go out of business. They go to other point of sale providers. The same thing can happen to those big companies, right? It's just on a bigger scale. They're getting 275 new monthly merchants, but if they're losing 50, and then that 275 starts dropping and the 50 starts raising, at some point you're at parity. And private equity and venture capital and public companies, they don't like that.
No, they're ruthless. They're not going to stand for that.
Absolutely. So, Mike, one thing I talked about a bit was actionable data, right? I'd love for you to give us one piece of practical advice that's actionable for members of the organization to take home with them from Retail Now 2025?
The answer that I would historically give is you have to stay on top of the trends. And it sounds really trite and weak of an answer. But in today's world, I feel like it's more true than ever because of all the different things going on. Everyone here is feeling immense pressure to deal with economic challenges, technological challenges, AI. There's a ton of uncertainty, right? There's so much coming at everyone so quickly. How do you make decisions for your business? How do you apply them the right way? How do you? And so the answer has always been like, you have to stay on top of these trends. But I don't know that people actually did dedicate much time to doing that. And so now I think it's more important than ever to do that. Now, I like to think that our publications, we're not like beholding to anyone. My purpose is really to deliver like the truth to our readers and help them kind of cut through and see through this stuff. But we've been talking about it here, like the RSPA is a good example. If you need to understand what's going on in this world and you want to stay on top of things, you can't do it alone. So you need help. And that help should come from the form of peers at the RSPA, vendor partners like you guys. I mean, you guys are aggregators of information. You personally are probably talking to partners every single day, hearing what's working, what's not. So if you've got partners that are sitting back, not communicating with you, thinking that, well, they won't give me this information or I won't get any help from them, I think that they need to adjust how they think about their relationship with you, go deeper, like talk to their vendor partners and find out, try to get some direction on where they should be going. So I don't know if that's actionable or not, but talk more to people, right? Get more information and get it from people that you trust.
That's great advice.
All right.
Great advice. So, Mike, we're out of time. I appreciate
Thank
you, as always, being willing to come on and chat through all kinds of things with us.
No
It's my
problem.
pleasure to have you here today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.